everyone, to Monday's LinkedIn Live. Don't stop me now. We're talking about, what the next generation of leadership looks like from both an employee perspective and an organizational perspective. But today, my guest, Meshell Baker, is amazing at the one-liners as far as producing confidence, and she has a way about her that just lifts everybody up. So help me welcome Meshell Baker.
Hello! Yay! Hey, Paula. All things music. I'm so excited.
All things music and all things confidence, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We were just together last week, and one of the beautiful things about you was every time you put something out there, it just seemed to show up.
Oh, you're talking about like manifesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of the work that I do with that confidence to know that we are actually every individual is a gift. Like, and when you operate in the gift that you are, it's like your soul sings.
Yeah.
Right? And this song will carry a tune that other people can capture and hear. So that's why I love all things music. Plus, it changes the mood very quick.
Oh, doesn't it? And that's what I love about, working with you too, because you have this. But first, before we get into any of that, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, and, how you started in this confidence building or igniting confidence.
Well, thanks for asking. I started my entrepreneurship. Actually, it was a quest to be available to support my sister. She's disabled. I was in Austin working a corporate sales job. I was a executive biotech sales rep. I had a 10-state territory, and I was traveling around doing all my sales, doing everything. And my sister came down to go to a school in Austin, a rehab for people who had visually impaired, blind, that kind of thing. And I realized that once she finished, I wanted her to stay where she had started to create, joy and happiness in her life. She had made friends, reached out in the community, had all these awesome things, right? And that had me step out of corporate and into an opportunity. I was invited to a networking event, and was invited to an opportunity to follow my bliss. And in following my bliss, I really started to realize that. And I remember my first coach, she asked me, "What is the thing that you do naturally that people ask you?" And that's the one thing I tell people: if you're confident, you are an expert in something. People come to you all the time for something, and whatever that is that you do naturally without thinking about it, it's your expertise. And people would always ask me, why is it that you can turn anything into a positive? Like, people would always ask me if they were feeling negative or down about something. And how is it that you just smile all the time? Like, how are you just so full of joy?
And that is
And that's
true.
literally, so I started my business doing vision boards,
Mhm.
because it was clear. I knew who I was and how I operated and demonstrated that value to the world gave me joy, and it always created massive opportunity. So that's how I started. And then it gravitated because I had 20 years of corporate sales background, people to ask me to help them with their sales and to find that same joy in how they were selling.
That's awesome. So awesome. So we were kind of on the same pathway there. 20 years in corporate for you, 30 years in corporate for me, and just going out on entrepreneurship here to really, go with the thing that ignites us, right?
Yes.
As you say, igniting confidence. So let's look at, because we know that young people today and organizations today, and we've talked about this on LinkedIn Live, there are different needs that are conflicting with each other. How do we use that confidence, or even a storyboard like you were talking about? Or what board were you saying?
A vision board.
A vision board. So talking about a vision board to help bring leadership and that next generation to understanding how we really get productive and get achieve the results we need to get while having joy in our life.
So, and just to be clear, is there a specific area of productivity that you're interested in? And where is it like? So, what do you sense the gap is? That's like because you said it's different for these generations. So, what is that gap you're speaking to? And I, love to jump in, but I just want to be certain that
Yeah.
I'm answering your question specifically.
Oh, I love your follow-up questions. Those are just so beautiful. I think you've taught me a few of those too. I think with emerging leaders and high potential leaders today who are looking to climb that corporate ladder, there is a missing part of understanding who they are intentionally, who they are to bring to work as their whole self, because they're learning on the job everything that they have as far as their, and we've talked about this too, their side A, their resume building skills. But to tap into that side B, those positive behavioral traits, how do emerging and high potential leaders create a vision board so that they can see what's naturally inside of them?
Well, I mean, I think that's a really great question, and it's interesting because there's some people are have an affinity at a very young age to already know what it is that drives them and inspires them. It's a very few percentage of the population who knows that. The bulk of the population goes through experiences.
Mhm.
So it is the experiences of what doesn't work. I always remind people there is no pleasure without pain, right? And the express route to pleasure is through pain, right? There's literally no way around it. I always say the only way to it is through it. So having said that, it's going to that legacy. When you look at people who have created a life that has had great impact, they
Mhm.
decided early on or at some juncture, because it's not always early. Like, I think about Vera Wang. I was doing some research recently, and she didn't sew her first dress until wedding dress until she was in her 40s,
Yeah.
right? But there's some juncture or point in life where somebody needs to decide who their leadership legacy is as a leader. And
Mhm.
once you decide that, then all directions point north, so to speak, because that decision on who you're going to be, like it's that writing that obituary, or at the end of my career, when I retire and when I step down from my leadership role, what is it that I want people to have said about me? Then you back up, and that does not happen overnight. Now you back up to today and you close the gap. Now, what are the activities? What are the trainings? Who are the mentors who have already achieved and accomplished? You got to understand that there's nothing under the sun that hasn't been done before.
Right.
Nothing, right?
Right.
That we are innovating and creating and rejiggering things. When it comes to leadership, there's no new profound way to lead. So someone has already led successfully to some end result that you are desiring, and those become your mentors, either virtually by listening to their videos. Go to YouTube, Google their name. They have books out. If they're great leaders almost always have published a book, right? If they have training. So there is a pathway to develop this which you desire, and it always starts with the desk that what is it you want to create.
I love that. And, thank you for bringing that up because I'm sure you've read my book. We talk about bringing your whole self, and that is your authentic leadership legacy, which is, I've acronymed it for all, to bring your whole self. And it's really about understanding intentionally where you want to be. And I love that you brought that up, and using your vision board to be able to create that. Who are your mentors? How can you begin to understand um, the achievements you bring, which are phenomenal? And we need that. And that's that both and approach. but you
Yes.
also aren't going to be remembered 20 years down the line for achieving 8% over growth, right?
Yes.
You
Ex-
are going to be remembered for how you made people feel.
yes, exactly.
So, getting language around those emotions is what side B is really all about. Are you curious, which you are, and you are also my one of my very, very favorites, the vocalist, and that is optimistic. And we talked about this before.
Yes.
Optimism does not always mean positive, 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 positive. It means you are hopeful about the future, right?
Absolutely, I agree. There's a fallacy where people think that there's the term Pollyanna, that that person who is positive, like when people see me and they will hear me and they're like, you bring such joy and enthusiasm and like, oh my God. And I tell people that like no one knows that I was diagnosed twice in my life with suicidal ideation, and I say that because I want people to understand that what you see is daily. It's me deciding my legacy and then working every day to stay in that space because I know the other side of the
Yeah,
coin. I know what it's like to be negative. I know what it's like to feel that hopelessness, to just sit there and look at my mistakes and think that I was worthless because of all the failures and the missteps and the setbacks. So, again, deciding who you want to be and the kind of life you want to live, right? The kind of jobs and careers and opportunities you want to have opened up to you, that is not you, that does require work, right? That this is the saying is, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Is I don't can't think of a more truer adage at this
right.
juncture in this conversation, because having anything worth having is work.
It's work, and it's having the right context behind it. And you simply are amazing that you work every day to be joyful. And you do. You when Meshell walks into a room out there in wonderful LinkedIn world, she lights it up. There is absolutely no blindness in, or no blind spot in her that I've seen so far. So how do we get our leaders to understand this?
Well, again, it's difficult because once you're in a leadership role, it's difficult to be vulnerable, right?
Right.
Brene Brown talks about it all the time, and she's just massively successful in the work that she's done with helping leaders in that, to like you're doing to get that authenticity, right? And again, it's just having people find what makes them feel good and what makes them feel strong enough to share the fact that they aren't perfect,
Yes.
right? Like one of
Right.
the, I always think the greatest gift you can give your team and your people is the ability to share from an empowered, vulnerable place. Not that weakness, but that place of, you know what, I get it. Let me tell you a story about how when I sucked wind, right? Let me tell you a story about when I didn't make quota, right? And then what I learned from that, or how I use that to leverage and then to go forward and change the trajectory of my career after
Right.
after I fell flat on my face. And I believe right now, because we're so socially driven to see, the highlight reels, that people are stuck in perfectionism, and they're so quick to judge people who are, it's food for fodder when someone fails now, instead of understanding that everybody's human, nobody's perfect. And if someone has done something, there's generally, as an adult, there's generally something in them emotionally that triggered, right? Or
Right.
it just happened. Like the unplanned and the unexpected. Life is constantly changing. We don't get to control everything. There's going to be times when it just doesn't go the way you planned.
Right. No, I get that.
So, so I,
Like
I think
today.
I think creating spaces where people can have those conversations,
Yeah.
is absolutely mandatory, right? Because if they don't talk about it, it just breeds dissent and discouragement inside.
Right. No, I agree. Like right now, and this is hilarious, but my my mother lives with me, and I've every Monday told her between 2 and 2:30, don't knock on my door, don't do this. Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear it. She's out there sweeping and got
No.
the sweeper going. So if you hear the sweeper going on my end, please excuse it. But I think you're absolutely right. It's being intentional and being vulnerable. And that's what we talk about in the legacy part of it, is that you really need to show up as your whole person.
Yeah.
And you can do that through music and vision boards and help others to achieve that. Because would you say today that people who are just getting out of college are looking for leaders to behave that way, to ask them questions, to be curious or even courageous and vulnerable?
I would say absolutely yes. The younger generations have already they're already looking for fulfillment from day one when they go to these jobs. So they're not the people who wait for 30 years to have a life, right? They at the end of 30 years they will have lived their life, right?
Yes.
They're even waiting to buy houses longer. They're having a lower environmental imprint because they're living lighter, so they can do more traveling and having more fun, things like that. So I would say engaging people curiosity, that's so powerful, and I honestly see how rare it is for curiosity to be engaged of people. So I would say absolutely yes. Creating spaces where people can fail,
Mhm.
right? Some of the most incredible creations and innovations we have were from a failure, right? I always think of like, look, I'm always reminded every day, right? Post-it notes, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right, is was considered a failure. So again, just allowing people to have a voice, have a space to create, you know, finding how valuable they're, finding out what people really like to do. I
Mhm.
recently had someone on my team and she was doing my customer outreach. Turns out she couldn't stand it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? So that's okay. She likes filling out forms, so like speaker applications, following up with the headshots and things like that. So that's perfect. Now, I'm going to need to replace her, but at the same time, that could stress out as a leader, as someone, I'm leading my business, I'm leading this team, right? That puts you a hole in, and I think that's what people fear more than anything is the uncertainty. If I help someone to develop themselves and really do well, are they going to leave the company? What, the role I hired them for, are they no longer going to do it? And now I've got a gap. Instead of understanding that it's always better to put people where they belong in the long run, and in the, for the company as a whole, it's always better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And here's the interesting part of that take is that when leaders are fearful of educating, developing, and helping others get to another space, they come across as a bad leader because they are. I don't want to say bad. They come about as an ineffective leader. We'll say that as an
Yeah.
ineffective leader, not bad, but an ineffective leader, because the effective leaders are always going to be the one who are pushing people to be better than they are today,
Yes.
right? And
Absolutely.
when you get there, you definitely want somebody to be in a job that they absolutely love.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
I keep sitting up taller because I realize, like, oh my God, I have the thing across the bottom of my.
Across the bottom of your no, you look great. You look great. One other question that I have for you here, and this is probably goes out to a lot of people when we talk about legacy and when we talk about, you know, that next generation of leader who is also going to be bringing their whole self. How do you see music helping them to be that?
Well, music has been used since the beginning of time to really bring people together. Music can create community. I mean, I think about the conferences that I go to, especially in sales, right? You think in sales and leaderships, the great conferences and the great trainings that you go to, they know how to get you jacked up and amped up, right? And they often use music, right? And then they know how to, like when they want to change the mood and they want you to have that moment of vulnerability, the music changes. So, and I mean, you think about some of your favorites, some stores like Target is a great store for piping in music. I'm almost always dancing every time I go to a Target, or even Office Max. That I just think of some of the stores real quick that have a great reel because I remember dancing there. And when the song music's great, I dance. It's the rule that I have, that whenever I'm in a public place, if a great song comes on, if I start doing this, then I must dance the entire song to remind me to be confident and not care what other people think. Right?
Mhm.
It's always about me trusting myself and that instinct to dance. I follow the instinct all the way through to the end of the song. So
That
I think it's a great opportunity to create camaraderie, to create compassion, confidence. There's so many things that can happen with good music.
So if I were to ask you on a confidence playlist, what would be, I'm putting you on the spot here.
I know.
I know I am. But on a confidence playlist, what would be your top 2 songs that you would put on there to help you build your confidence?
um, the first song that comes to mind, and I do not have a playlist, so I'm making a note to myself after this. I will create a playlist. But the first song that comes to mind, and I'm showing my age and my generation, but the Rocky theme song.
Yeah.
Right? Like recently, I told you I'm with my sister, and so she's at rehab, broke her hip, femur fracture, all that kind of thing. And they were having her walk down the hall with physical therapy the first time, and she
Mhm.
was all nervous. So I followed her and the physical therapist down the hall playing that song because she just giggled and enjoyed it the whole time, right?
Now is
So,
that Gonna Fly Now by Bill Conti, or is that The Eye of the Tiger?
Eye of the Tiger.
So number 2. Okay.
No, that's the one. So that's the Eye of the Tiger is the one that I think of, and the other one is Queen.
Oh,
We are
yes.
the champions. That
Yes,
I just,
absolutely.
I mean, that one will just get me going every time,
That
right?
is
And
so
it's just about helping me get into that state of mind that I we are always, I tell every human being on this planet is always well equipped and able at any given moment to solve for whatever situation. We
Mhm.
have limitless capacity in our mind. Your imagination is going all day long. It's often not working in your favor. That's why you sit there and think things are going to go wrong. You have the exact same ability to things are going to go right. It's the same is true for a leader,
Mhm.
right? Thinking that it's not working or people aren't working. There is so much capability you have to inspire and ignite and encourage and enable and empower your people when you first see through that lens.
Mm, that's beautiful. We need to write that down. Empower, inspire, ignite, and motivate your people when you see through that lens. I am so thankful that you shared so much with us and you shared some personal stuff with us.
Yeah,
I think that's amazing because you are a true leader and you're doing the work to put language behind the intentionality of what you want your legacy to be.
absolutely.
And that is joyous.
Yes, absolutely.
And I understand that, you're in the midst of writing your book as well. So I'm very excited to see that. You think we might see that by next winter?
Yes, I would say definitely. It is on my list of I have 3 priorities this year, and it is number 3.
Okay, good.
So, yeah. So, like, that's what I learned, how I learned. 3 priorities, 1 a quarter, and then you have Q4. So if something drifts, to ensure that all 3 get done.
Yeah. And then you help a lot of people build vision boards and speak to a ton of people about how to ignite confidence within their sales team, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
where can people reach you?
Well, you can reach me at so you Google my name, Meshell Baker, or all of my tags are at Meshell R. Baker. You add my middle initial, and you can find me on any social media, my website. It'll come up, and you can click the link and schedule a discovery call. I always tell people that's one of the best ways to ignite confidence. And always my goal, I'm part of Women's Sales Pro. So Paula and I are part of another organization of incredible women sales leaders. So even if it's not me, I will put you in the hands of someone who is completely capable and totally awesome to help you with your sales success.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you here. Is there any final tip that you would like to give our emerging and high potential? Let me ask you, what do you think an emerging or high potential leader is?
Well, I mean, I would say it's someone who is, well, the word emerging means that they're expanding and they're growing in their capabilities. So I would honestly say that it's someone who is doing just that, someone who has decided that their leadership is more important than ego. So they're putting that ability to, that I love the memes where they show the manager is behind the team and the leader is right with the team, right? Moving together. And so it's someone who is decided that the most important thing is that their people excel. Because when what is it? All boats rise with the tide.
Hmm.
So that.
Or what I learned, flip the organizational chart, right? Turn it upside down where you work for your people, right?
Yes, yes, and more of that, right?
Yeah.
I know we were together last week, and one of the things that were so interesting was the discussion about the Great Resignation was, a lot to do with people and people's dissatisfaction, right? We've generations and generations of people who are working just to work and never finding fulfillment. When you look at statistically, as someone who works, you spend most of your waking hours at a job. And so
Right.
I see nothing wrong with wanting to have some fulfillment where you spend most of your time alive on this planet.
Yes, exactly.
So
And
an emerging leader understands that and wants to create those experiences. You can't do it for everyone, and more often than not, wants to create those experiences for their people.
I love that you say that you cannot do it for everyone, but you certainly can do it for the people who need that from you, right?
Exactly.
And like you said, if you put it out there, it's going to come back and it's going to happen and manifest itself. And I think that that's really what an emerging leader is doing, is they are creating that space and that focus to take that both and approach, getting the results, but more importantly, taking care of their people, because when they do, the results naturally come.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Any last minute tagline or something brilliant from the Meshell Baker?
No, the only thing that comes to mind for me right now is to tell people, do what lights you up, right? Honor what lights you up as a leader, and find the mentors who help you to be your best true self. Because when you light yourself up, it literally, I think I always think of it, when you light yourself on fire, people come watch you burn. Not the metaphor that you want to be burning. And it is also that that's what happens. People will look at you, you shine, you glow, you are attractive, you're magnetic in who you are. And that's what captures the best high quality people. Remember, you want top performers on your team, working in your organization, working in your corporation. And as a leader, you have the ability to attract that by who you are. So do what lights you up.
Well said. Now hang tight for me as we end this, and I'll be right back with you.
Yes.